Lyra had always been curious about the skies. On Zyphora, the home planet of her species, the sky was a swirl of soft purples and golden streaks, changing color with the rising and setting of the twin suns. From her small observation deck high above the city, she could see the whole horizon. Every day she watched the world below, the bustling streets, the glimmering towers, and the silent forest stretching into the distance. But today was different. Something unusual was happening, something that made her heart race with both excitement and fear. Far off on the horizon, a tiny speck moved against the sky. At first, it seemed like a falling star, glowing faintly in the sunlight. But as it came closer, Lyra could tell it was not a star. It moved in a way that no natural object should, almost as if it were alive. She squinted, leaning closer to the glass. Her heart skipped a beat. It was a spacecraft, unlike anything she had ever seen. The metal shimmered in a way that seemed simple, almost primitive. It was small and human-shaped, not like the large, sleek ships her people built. The aliens of Zyphora rarely saw ships from outside their system, and those that did arrive usually carried delicate, fragile-looking creatures. But this one had something different about it. There was a sense of confidence in the way it landed, a calmness in its motion. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. She watched as the landing ramp opened slowly. A figure stepped out. Lyra froze, unable to believe her eyes. It was a human. Her people had heard stories of humans, but they were considered primitive, fragile, and weak. Humans were known to barely survive in space for more than a few hours without support, yet here was one, standing calmly on the strange surface of Zyphora. Lyra's eyes widened. The human looked around, taking in the alien landscape with a quiet awareness. His movements were precise, careful, but not hesitant. He adjusted something on his small suit and then walked away from the spacecraft. Every step he took was measured, yet full of confidence. Lyra's thoughts raced. How can this be? Was this even possible for a human? She whispered to herself. Her curiosity was stronger than any fear. She wanted to know more, to understand this creature that defied everything her people believed about humans. Slowly, carefully, she moved to follow him. She kept to the shadows, her small body slipping between observation decks and the edges of the city walls. Her friends often teased her for being too curious, but she could not ignore what she was seeing. This human was different. As she followed, she observed the human's interactions with the environment. He touched the rocks, feeling the texture. He studied small plants, seemingly trying to understand which ones were safe to step on or interact with. Lyra noticed how he seemed to anticipate danger, how he avoided unstable ground without even looking down. Every movement told her that he had a natural understanding of his surroundings, something her people had to train for years to develop with technology. Hours passed and Lyra could hardly take her eyes off him. She saw him approach a stream of water that flowed between the rocks. With his bare hands, he examined it, testing the flow and depth. Lyra had never seen such a thing before. Her species would have used sensors, probes, or robots to gather this information, but the human did it instinctively. There was a simplicity to it, yet it seemed effective. Her mind began to fill with questions. How could such a simple creature be so capable? How could it survive in space, navigate an alien world, and still move with such confidence? She had been taught to respect humans for their rarity, but never to admire them. And yet, here she was, holding her breath, unable to look away. As the sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the landscape, the human finally paused. He looked around, scanning the horizon. Lyra noticed something in his expression, a quiet determination, almost like he was planning his next move. She wondered what his intentions were. Was he here for exploration, or was there a mission she could not yet understand? She could not tell, but something about him felt different from all the other beings she had ever seen. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed across the rocks. A small piece of the cliff face crumbled and fell near the human, sending dust into the air. Most aliens would have jumped back in fear or called for assistance, but the human stayed calm. He examined the debris, then continued on his path, carefully stepping around dangerous spots. Lyra felt a strange admiration for him. This calmness in the face of danger, this ability to adapt, was something she had never witnessed before. As night approached, Lyra realized she had been following him for hours without pause. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. Her curiosity demanded that she continue, but she also knew the dangers of being caught outside the city after dark. Alien patrols were strict and humans were considered unpredictable. She hesitated, torn between following him and returning to safety. Finally, she made a decision. She would follow him, but from a distance, keeping hidden. She wanted to understand, to learn, and perhaps to see if humans were truly as extraordinary as they appeared. She climbed higher, using the observation towers to stay above him, watching silently as he explored the rocky terrain. As she observed, she noticed something remarkable. The human seemed to be repairing a small device he carried. It was simple, made of parts that looked fragile. Yet he worked with precision, adjusting each piece carefully, testing it, and then moving on to the next. Lyra could hardly believe what she was seeing. Her people would have needed sophisticated tools and machinery to do the same task. Yet this human did it with only his hands and sharp intelligence. Her mind raced with thoughts. Could this creature, so small and seemingly fragile, really survive here? Could it really learn, adapt, and solve problems that would challenge even the most advanced aliens? Lyra's heart beat faster with excitement. She had always known humans were strange and rare, but she had never imagined them capable of such skill. Suddenly, a movement caught her eye. A small creature from the alien wilderness approached the human. Most humans would have panicked, but he knelt down slowly, extending a hand. The creature hesitated, then cautiously approached, allowing the human to touch it. Lyra gasped. This was something her people had never done. Humans had the ability to connect, to communicate, even with beings so different from themselves. Lyra realized then that humans were not just survivors. They were thinkers, adapters, and perhaps even teachers. She felt a deep curiosity growing inside her, stronger than anything she had ever experienced. She wanted to know everything about him, about his world, and about the capabilities of humans in general. Hours passed, and the twin moons of Zyphora rose high in the sky. Lyra watched as the human set up a small shelter for the night, arranging his tools carefully, checking his surroundings, and even preparing a small fire for warmth. It was methodical and careful, but also creative. He was not just following rules. He was making new ones, inventing solutions as he went. Lyra's admiration grew with every passing moment. She realized that her people had underestimated humans for far too long. They had seen them as weak, but here was proof of something extraordinary. Intelligence, courage, adaptability, and even empathy, all combined in a single being. She thought of the stories her elders told, of the humans who barely survived space travel. And yet this human had not only survived but thrived in a world far beyond his home planet. As the night deepened, Lyra made a choice. She would continue to follow him, learning everything she could. Perhaps one day, she could bring this knowledge back to her people, helping them see humans in a new light. But for now, she simply watched, amazed, as the human moved with quiet determination, proving that what her species believed about humans might not be entirely true. She felt a mix of excitement, fear, and wonder. The human was small and fragile-looking, yes, but he was more than that. He was clever, resourceful, and brave. And as she watched him work under the light of the moons, Lyra could not help but whisper to herself again, more firmly this time. So this is possible for a human. Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. She had witnessed something extraordinary today, something that might change everything she thought she knew about humans. Her curiosity had led her here, but it was admiration that kept her in the shadows, following silently, eager to see what would happen next. And deep inside, she wondered if humans could one day teach her people a lesson they never expected, a lesson that would show Zyphora that strength did not always come from technology, size, or power, but sometimes from determination, intelligence, and courage. The human finally settled for the night, sitting quietly by his small fire. Lyra stayed hidden, watching, fascinated. She did not move, did not speak, for fear of startling him. She simply observed, knowing that tomorrow would bring more questions, more surprises, and perhaps more proof that humans were capable of things her species had never imagined. Her thoughts raced as she finally climbed back to her observation deck. The city lights twinkled below her, but her mind was on the human and what she had seen. It was impossible, unbelievable, and yet undeniably true. And as she drifted into a light sleep, she dreamed of humans, of their strange resilience, their cleverness, and the mystery that surrounded them. Lyra did not know what the future held. She did not know if the human would survive the planet's dangers, or what her people would do if they discovered him. But one thing was certain. Her world had changed in that single day, and her fascination with humans had only just begun. The next morning, the sky over Zyphora glowed with pale golden light as the twin suns began their slow climb. Lyra awoke early, unable to sleep. Her thoughts were consumed by the human she had seen the previous day. She remembered every detail, the way he had moved, the calm in his eyes, the confidence with which he navigated the alien terrain. She could not understand it. How could such a small, fragile creature survive here and even thrive in ways her people could not? Lyra made her way to the edge of the observation deck, careful not to be seen by the morning patrols. She scanned the horizon and saw the human already active, walking among the rocks with a steady pace. He seemed focused, yet he moved with a natural ease that made Lyra's heart beat faster. She wondered what he was thinking, what he planned to do next. Her curiosity outweighed her caution, and she began to follow him again, keeping her distance. As she followed, she noticed the human carrying a small device, something she could not recognize. It looked fragile, made of materials that seemed simple, almost primitive. Yet he handled it with care, adjusting parts and testing it repeatedly. Lyra watched, astonished. Her people had machines far more advanced, with artificial intelligence and complex programming, but this human relied only on his own hands and mind. He seemed to solve problems instinctively, without hesitation. Hours passed as she observed him. He reached a steep ridge and studied it for a long time before beginning to climb. Every movement was calculated, precise, yet he did not seem afraid. Lyra could see the strain in his muscles, but also the focus in his eyes. He paused frequently, looking around and testing the rocks before putting his weight on them. It was slow, careful work, yet he made steady progress. Lyra could hardly contain her admiration. Her people would have used machines or safety equipment to climb this ridge, but the human had none. He relied on his skill, his observation, and his understanding of the environment. She realized that humans were not just physically capable, they were intelligent in ways her people had rarely seen. They could adapt to unknown situations quickly, and they could create solutions with whatever resources they had. As he reached the top, Lyra noticed something new. The human paused and began examining the view. His eyes scanned the horizon as if searching for something, yet he seemed calm. Then he began to mark locations with small objects he carried, arranging them in a pattern that made sense to him. Lyra's mind raced. She did not understand what he was doing, but she knew it required intelligence and planning. She felt a strange admiration for this creature, something deeper than mere curiosity. While she watched, a sudden noise echoed from below. A group of small alien creatures, similar to the ones she had seen yesterday, approached the human. They moved quickly, and Lyra expected the human to retreat. but he did not. Instead, he knelt down and extended his hand slowly, speaking in a soft voice that Lyra could not understand. The creatures hesitated, then cautiously approached him. He allowed them to touch his hands, gently guiding them away from danger. Lyra gasped silently. Her species rarely showed such empathy towards smaller creatures. They used technology to control or remove threats, rarely interacting directly. The human's ability to connect with them, to communicate without words, was astonishing. She realized that humans were capable of something her people often lacked, understanding through observation and kindness. As the morning continued, Lyra watched the human gather resources. He collected small stones, pieces of wood, and plants, arranging them carefully. It seemed he was preparing something, though she could not yet understand what. What amazed her most was his patience. He worked slowly, methodically, never wasting effort, never making a mistake. Every action had purpose. Lyra's fascination grew with each passing hour. She knew that if anyone discovered she was watching, she would be scolded or worse, but she could not stop herself. There was something remarkable about this human, something she had never seen before. He was not only surviving but thriving, using intelligence, creativity, and courage in a way that made her question everything she had been taught about humans. Suddenly, the weather began to change. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, moving faster than usual. The winds picked up, strong enough to throw dust and small debris across the rocky landscape. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Storms on Sci-Fi could be deadly, even for the most advanced aliens. Many species would retreat immediately, but the human did not. He paused for a moment, looking around, then began adjusting his preparations. He used the stones and wood he had gathered to build a small shelter against the wind. Lyra watched in amazement. It was simple, yet effective. The shelter would protect him from the harsh elements, and he built it with careful attention to detail. Her people would have taken machines, sensors, and energy shields to do the same task, but the human relied only on his understanding and resourcefulness. The storm hit with full force. Rain and wind lashed against the rocks, and lightning streaked across the sky. Lyra could see that many of the alien creatures below were struggling to survive. Most humans would have panicked in this situation, but he remained calm, adjusting his shelter and using his small tools to reinforce it. Lyra's admiration turned into awe. She whispered to herself, "He is not just surviving, he is mastering this." As the storm continued, Lyra realized that she could not leave. She needed to see how he would handle this challenge. Her species often relied on rules and technology to overcome difficulties, but the human seemed to have an instinctive understanding of the environment. He adapted quickly, thinking through problems step by step and finding solutions that were not obvious. Hours passed and the storm began to subside. The human emerged from his shelter, wet and tired but unharmed. Lyra could see the determination in his eyes. He was not discouraged, not defeated. He had survived not because of advanced technology or strength, but because of intelligence, creativity, and courage. Lyra felt a mix of emotions. She admired him, certainly, but she also felt a deep curiosity. How had humans evolved to be so capable? How could such a small, seemingly fragile creature survive in space and on alien worlds? Her species had underestimated humans for generations, and she now understood that this human was proof of something extraordinary. She watched as he began to explore again, carefully examining the terrain for potential dangers. His movements were deliberate, yet flexible, adjusting to obstacles as they appeared. Lyra realized that humans had an ability to adapt that was rare even among the most advanced alien species. They could think creatively, improvise solutions, and act decisively in situations where others would hesitate. As the day went on, Lyra continued to follow him, remaining hidden but close. She noticed how he used simple tools to solve complex problems, how he observed carefully before acting, and how he remained calm under pressure. Every action seemed to demonstrate an intelligence that was practical, flexible, and deeply resourceful. By the evening, the human had built a small system to collect rainwater, using rocks and plants to direct the flow. Lyra could hardly believe what she was seeing. This was not just survival. It was engineering, planning, and innovation. She realized that humans were capable of teaching even advanced civilizations lessons in adaptability and problem-solving. As the twin moons rose, casting soft light over the landscape, Lyra felt a sense of admiration and awe. She had followed him all day, watched him face storms, navigate difficult terrain, and build tools and shelters from scratch. She thought of her people, who often relied on technology and rules, and realized that humans were remarkable in ways her species had never fully understood. For the first time, Lyra felt a connection to a human, not through words, but through recognition of skill, intelligence, and courage. She understood that humans were more than fragile creatures. They were capable of extraordinary things, and perhaps they were underestimated for far too long. As night fell, the human rested briefly, tending to his small shelter and tools. Lyra observed silently, careful not to disturb him. She could see the exhaustion on his face, but also a quiet satisfaction. He had faced challenges and overcome them, not through technology or strength, but through thought, creativity, and courage. Lyra realized that she had been wrong to judge humans by her people's standards. They were not weak or fragile. They were clever, adaptable, and resilient. She wondered what other humans were like, and whether they could survive on even more dangerous planets. Her curiosity deepened, and she felt a growing determination to learn everything she could about them. Finally, Lyra returned to her observation deck, her mind racing with the events of the day. She had seen something extraordinary, something that might change the way her people thought about humans forever. She could not wait to see what he would do next, to observe how he would continue to survive, adapt, and perhaps even thrive on Zyphora. As she drifted into a light sleep, her thoughts remained with the human. She felt excitement and anticipation for the next day, eager to witness more of his cleverness, bravery, and ingenuity. She knew that humans were unlike any species she had ever encountered, and she could not wait to see just how extraordinary they truly were. The morning air was cool and crisp as Lyra rose early once again. She could hardly sleep the night before, her mind racing with thoughts of the human who had captured her fascination. Yesterday had been a revelation. She had seen him survive the storm, build tools and shelters from scratch, and adapt to the dangers of Zyphora in ways that no alien she knew could. She could not stop thinking about his intelligence, creativity, and courage. Lyra decided that she could no longer remain hidden. Curiosity had grown into something stronger, an urgent need to understand this human, to see his world through his eyes. She approached the edge of the observation deck and watched him below. The human was already moving, scanning the terrain, careful and deliberate in every step. Lyra could see the way he adjusted his movements to avoid unstable ground, how he noticed small details she might have missed. She took a deep breath and climbed down the observation towers, careful not to make a sound. Her heart pounded in her chest. She knew this was risky. The alien authorities would not approve of her interacting with a human. They considered humans fragile, dangerous, and unpredictable, but Lyra could not ignore what she had seen. She needed to understand him firsthand. As she approached cautiously, the human paused. He looked up as if sensing her presence. Lyra froze, unsure if she had been noticed, but the human only smiled slightly and returned to his task. There was a calm confidence about him, a quiet assurance that she found both astonishing and comforting. She took another step forward, trying to remain hidden but close enough to observe. The human was repairing a small device again. His fingers moved with precision, adjusting tiny components, testing them, and then moving on. Lyra could see the careful attention in his movements, the methodical way he solved problems. It was unlike anything she had seen her people do. Her species relied heavily on advanced tools, machines, and pre-programmed solutions. The human relied only on his mind, his hands, and his observation. Lyra could not help herself. She stepped closer, silently, her curiosity stronger than her fear. She wanted to see more, to understand how he thought, how he approached problems, and how he survived in this harsh, alien world. Suddenly, the human looked up again, this time directly at her. Lyra froze. Her heart raced. She expected him to panic or run, but he did neither. Instead, he smiled gently, as if acknowledging her presence without fear. Lyra felt a wave of relief and wonder. He was not afraid, not defensive. He was calm, curious, and accepting. She took another step forward, and the human gestured for her to stop, but not in anger or fear. It was a gentle motion, a signal of awareness, not command. Lyra nodded slowly, understanding that he had noticed her but did not feel threatened. For the first time, she felt a connection, a bridge between her world and his. Carefully, Lyra approached closer, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. She noticed the way he observed her, his eyes sharp and intelligent, studying her without judgment. She realized that humans had an unusual ability to read situations, to understand intentions without needing words. It was something her people rarely mastered. Finally, she stopped a few steps away. The human smiled again, holding out a hand in greeting. Lyra hesitated, then slowly extended her own hand. There was a brief moment of silence as their fingers met. She felt a strange warmth, a connection that transcended language, species, and expectation. The human's touch was gentle but confident, a reassurance that she was safe. They began to communicate, not with words but with gestures and expressions. The human pointed to his device, then to her, asking a question. Lyra nodded and mimed the function of the device. He watched carefully, understanding quickly. It amazed her how fast he could learn, how intuitive he was. Humans were not just survivors. They were problem solvers, quick thinkers, and adaptable in ways that defied logic. As the morning passed, Lyra and the human moved together through the rocky landscape. She showed him safe paths, places to gather food, and areas to avoid. He followed her guidance but added his own ideas, suggesting new ways to navigate, to build, to survive. Lyra was amazed. His mind worked differently, yet effectively. He could combine observation with creativity, making solutions on the spot. At one point, they encountered a small stream blocked by rocks. Lyra expected him to wait or become frustrated, but he knelt down and began arranging the rocks, testing the flow of water and adjusting the path. In minutes, he had redirected the stream so that it flowed more smoothly. Lyra watched in awe. She had never seen a creature work so efficiently with such simple materials. Humans were truly extraordinary. As they traveled further, Lyra noticed the human taking notes in a small book he carried. He drew shapes, wrote symbols, and sketched diagrams. It was clear he was observing and recording everything meticulously, learning from every step. Lyra realized that humans had a unique combination of intelligence and curiosity that made them exceptional. They could survive, innovate, and even teach others in ways her species often overlooked. The afternoon brought new challenges. A group of alien creatures appeared, larger and more aggressive than the small animals they had encountered before. Lyra expected the human to retreat, but he did not. He assessed the situation carefully, then used clever maneuvers to distract and guide the creatures away without harming them. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. His ability to think on his feet, to solve problems with both intelligence and empathy, was remarkable. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep respect for humans. They were not fragile, primitive, or weak. They were clever, resourceful, and resilient in ways her species had never truly appreciated. She realized that humans had a natural strength that went beyond physical power or technology. Their minds, their creativity, and their courage made them capable of extraordinary things. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain, Lyra and the human found a safe place to rest. They shared water and food, communicating with gestures and expressions. Lyra felt a sense of connection growing between them, a bond built on trust and mutual respect. She realized that humans could form connections across species, understanding and empathy that went beyond words. That night under the soft light of Zyphora's moons, Lyra reflected on everything she had seen. The human had survived storms, solved complex problems, and navigated dangerous terrain, all without the advanced technology her species relied upon. He had shown intelligence, courage, and empathy in ways that defied her expectations. She could not stop thinking about him, about his resilience, and about the potential of humans in general. She knew that her people would never believe what she had witnessed. Humans had always been underestimated, dismissed as fragile and primitive. But Lyra had seen the truth. They were exceptional, capable of things that her species could barely imagine. And this single human was proof of what humanity could achieve with determination, creativity, and courage. As the night deepened, Lyra and the human continued to observe the stars together. She mimicked his gestures, and he responded with smiles and nods, building a silent language of understanding. She realized that humans could teach even the most advanced civilizations valuable lessons about problem-solving, creativity, and adaptability. Lyra felt a sense of excitement and anticipation for the days to come. She wanted to see more, to learn more, and to understand the full potential of humans. She had followed him for 2 days now, and each moment had revealed something new, something extraordinary. She knew that this was only the beginning. Her admiration for the human grew with every passing hour. She could see his determination, his intelligence, and his resilience. She could see the way he adapted to new challenges, how he observed and learned, and how he approached problems with creativity and courage. He was not just surviving, he was thriving. Lyra realized that humans were more than just creatures from another planet. They were thinkers, innovators, and adapters. They had the ability to face unknown worlds, overcome challenges, and find solutions where others might fail. She felt a deep respect for him and a growing fascination with humanity as a whole. As the twin moons rose high in the sky, casting silver light over the rocky landscape, Lyra knew she had made a choice. She would no longer remain an observer. She would learn from him, understand him, and perhaps even help him navigate this world. She trusted him, and she believed that humans had a potential that even her advanced species had underestimated. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt that humans were not just strange or fragile. They were extraordinary. They were capable of courage, intelligence, and empathy in ways that could challenge even the most advanced civilizations. She knew that her life, and perhaps the future of Zyphora, would be changed by what she had discovered. She looked at the human, who was quietly examining the landscape and making careful plans for the next day. She felt hope and excitement. This small, seemingly fragile creature had already accomplished so much, and she knew there was much more to come. Humans, she realized, were a force of creativity, determination, and unexpected brilliance. As she drifted into sleep, Lyra dreamed of the adventures that lay ahead. She thought of the storms they would face, the challenges they would overcome, and the lessons they would learn from each other. She knew that humans were extraordinary, and she could not wait to see how far their courage, intelligence, and creativity could take them on Zyphora. The morning air was sharp and cool as Lyra climbed to her usual vantage point. She could see the human moving below, methodical and precise, already adjusting his small tools and equipment. Today, however, she sensed something different. The city of Zyphora, with its glowing towers and organized streets, seemed quieter than usual, as if holding its breath. Lyra's instincts told her that the authorities had noticed something unusual. Humans were rare on Zyphora, and even a single human wandering freely would attract attention. She watched him carefully. The human had begun constructing a small signal device, using rocks, wires, and simple tools he had gathered. His hands moved quickly, arranging components with precision. Lyra marveled at his skill. The device was basic compared to the advanced machinery of her species, yet it seemed effective. He worked instinctively, solving problems as they arose, adjusting his approach when things didn't work. It was remarkable how quickly he adapted. Suddenly, alarms blared across the city. Red lights flashed along the towers and hovering patrol drones began scanning the area. Lyra's heart raced. The authorities had noticed him. She had known this day might come, yet she felt unprepared. She watched as the human paused, his expression calm. He did not panic or run immediately. Instead, he scanned the environment, assessing his options. Lyra felt a surge of admiration. Even in danger, he remained composed, analyzing and planning his next move. Lyra realized that she could not let the human be captured. Her curiosity had turned into something deeper, a sense of responsibility. She needed to help him, not just observe. Carefully, she descended from her hiding place and approached him, keeping low and silent. She could see the patrol drones approaching, their scanning lights sweeping across the rocks and paths. She knew they would spot him soon. "Follow me," she whispered, keeping her voice low. The human glanced at her and nodded, understanding immediately. Lyra led him through narrow paths and hidden caves, places she knew the drones would not easily detect. Her heart pounded as she moved, aware that if they were discovered, both of them could be in serious danger. The human moved with surprising agility, adapting quickly to the terrain Lyra led him through. He used his hands and feet to balance on sharp rocks, sometimes leaping short distances, other times crouching to avoid detection. Lyra marveled at his physical skill, but even more at his intelligence. He seemed to anticipate obstacles before they appeared, making adjustments that even Lyra had not expected. As they moved, Lyra explained in gestures what the patrols were doing, pointing to drones and indicating their paths. The human listened carefully, nodding and miming back in understanding. Lyra was amazed at how quickly he could interpret her signals. Humans, she realized, were not just capable physically. They had an ability to communicate, understand, and adapt that her people rarely possessed. They reached a hidden ravine, a place Lyra knew well. It was narrow and difficult to navigate, but it provided cover from the drones above. The human paused, studying the path. Then he smiled slightly, indicating he understood. He began moving carefully, testing each step before putting his full weight down. Lyra followed closely, amazed at how he used both observation and intuition to navigate safely. Once they reached the far side of the ravine, Lyra could see the city more clearly. Patrols were moving systematically, scanning the area, but the human had managed to evade them. She felt a mixture of relief and admiration. Humans, she realized, were not only clever, they were resilient. They could face danger and find solutions where others would fail. The human stopped briefly to catch his breath. Lyra noticed that he was not only surviving, but also thinking ahead. He pulled out a small notebook and began sketching, drawing patterns, and noting observations about the drones and patrols. Lyra realized that humans had a way of learning from every situation, recording information for later use, and adapting strategies in real time. It was a combination of intelligence, creativity, and courage that was rare even among advanced species. They continued moving through hidden paths, avoiding patrols, until they reached a cave she had discovered years ago. It was well hidden, with a narrow entrance and natural barriers that made it nearly invisible from the outside. Lyra led him inside, and the human immediately began examining the area, assessing its safety and potential uses. He arranged stones and small tools to create a temporary shelter, showing efficiency and ingenuity that left Lyra in awe. As they rested, Lyra watched him closely. He was more than just a visitor or a survivor. He was a teacher, demonstrating skills and problem-solving abilities that challenged everything she had learned. He built simple machines from basic materials, tested ideas quickly, and adapted when things didn't work. Lyra realized that humans had a unique combination of observation, intelligence, and creativity that made them formidable, even in an alien environment. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed through the cave. Lyra tensed. She had felt tremors before, but this was different, stronger, more unpredictable. The human immediately sprang into action. He scanned the cave, assessing weak points, and began rearranging rocks to stabilize the entrance. Lyra watched, astonished at how quickly he analyzed the situation and implemented solutions. Her people would have relied on machines or complex sensors, but the human needed nothing more than his mind and his hands. The tremors grew stronger, shaking the ground beneath them. Lyra could feel fear rising in her chest, but the human remained calm. He guided her through the cave, pointing out safe paths and adjusting his movements to avoid danger. Lyra realized that humans were not just adaptable. They could lead, inspire, and guide others even in life-threatening situations. As the tremors subsided, the human looked at her and smiled faintly, a gesture of reassurance. Lyra felt a deep respect and trust growing between them. She realized that humans could form bonds through understanding and action, not just words. Their courage, intelligence, and empathy combined to create a force that was more powerful than she had ever imagined. The rest of the day passed with careful planning and observation. The human continued to improve their temporary shelter, reinforcing weak spots and creating small devices to monitor the environment. Lyra watched every move, learning from him and seeing firsthand how humans approach challenges with creativity and determination. She began to think of ways her people could benefit from observing humans, realizing that their species could learn valuable lessons from these small but extraordinary creatures. As evening fell, the cave became a safe haven. Lyra and the human sat together, quietly observing the world outside. Patrols continued their search, but the human remained vigilant, adjusting plans and preparing for any unexpected challenges. Lyra could not stop thinking about the contrast between her species and humans. While her people relied on technology and rules, the human relied on intelligence, creativity, and courage, finding solutions in ways she had never imagined. Night arrived, and the twin moons cast a soft glow over the cave. Lyra felt a sense of awe and admiration for the human beside her. She realized that humans were extraordinary, capable of surviving, thriving, and even teaching others in ways that went beyond her understanding. She knew that this experience would change her perspective forever. As she drifted into a light sleep, she thought of the days ahead. Challenges would come, patrols would continue their search, and the planet would present new dangers. But she had faith in the human beside her. He had already shown resilience, intelligence, and courage beyond anything she had seen. She knew that together, they could overcome the obstacles ahead. Lyra dreamed of new adventures, of dangers to face, and of the bond growing between her and the human. She felt excitement, hope, and anticipation for what was to come. Humans, she realized, were not just capable of surviving. They could innovate, lead, and inspire even in the most challenging environments. Morning came again, and Lyra awoke with determination. She had made a choice. She would stand by the human, learn from him, and protect him if necessary. She knew the authorities would not understand, but she trusted her instincts. Humans were remarkable, and she wanted to see just how far their courage, creativity, and intelligence could take them. The human emerged from the cave, carrying small tools and preparing for the day ahead. Lyra followed closely, remaining at his side. They moved through the terrain with careful precision, avoiding patrols and observing their surroundings. Lyra noticed how the human combined intelligence with intuition, solving problems quickly and efficiently. She felt a growing admiration and respect, realizing that humans were capable of extraordinary things. As the day progressed, Lyra and the human worked together to create strategies, build devices, and navigate the dangerous landscape. Each challenge they faced was met with creativity, intelligence, and courage. Lyra realized that humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, capable of facing unknown challenges and finding solutions where others would fail. By evening, they had managed to create a small system to monitor the environment, alerting them to dangers and providing useful information for their journey. Lyra marveled at the human's ingenuity, realizing that even the most advanced aliens could learn from him. His courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness had already proven invaluable. As night fell, Lyra reflected on everything they had accomplished together. The human had survived storms, evaded authorities, and created solutions to challenges that would have overwhelmed others. She realized that humans were extraordinary, capable of thriving in ways her species had never imagined. She felt a deep respect, admiration, and trust for the human beside her, knowing that their journey was only beginning. The next morning, the skies of Zyphora were unusually bright, the twin suns casting long shadows over the rocky landscape. Lyra woke with a sense of urgency. Overnight, the air had carried a strange tension, a subtle vibration she had never felt before. Even the wind seemed restless, whispering of a force moving across the planet. She glanced at the human, who had already begun preparing his small tools, his movements calm yet precise. Something was coming. Lyra could feel it in her bones. She knew that whatever it was would challenge both of them, perhaps more than anything they had faced before. She quickly joined the human, pointing toward the distant mountains where she had seen unusual energy readings last night. The human nodded, understanding immediately, and they set off together, moving carefully through the rocky terrain. As they approached the mountains, the ground began to tremble. Small rocks fell from the cliffs above, and the wind picked up, carrying a faint, electric smell. Lyra's heart pounded, but she did not panic. She trusted the human. She had seen him face storms, evade patrols, and solve impossible problems with creativity and courage. If anyone could handle this, it was him. The human paused at the base of a jagged cliff, scanning the area. He gestured to Lyra, asking her to show him the safest path forward. She led him through narrow crevices, over uneven rocks, and around dangerous overhangs. The tremors were growing stronger now, small fissures opening in the ground beneath them. Yet the human moved with confidence, testing each step carefully, adjusting his path as needed. Lyra marveled at his skill. Humans, she realized again, were extraordinary. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed across the mountains. A massive landslide had begun further up, sending rocks and debris crashing down toward them. Lyra froze, but the human acted immediately. He scanned the area, looking for cover and possible escape routes. With precise movements, he guided Lyra to a small overhang, using rocks and simple tools to reinforce a temporary shelter against the falling debris. Lyra watched in awe. The human had improvised quickly, using observation, logic, and creativity to protect them both. His calmness under pressure was remarkable. She had never seen anyone, alien or human, react so effectively in a life-threatening situation. She realized that humans had a unique combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability that could outmatch even advanced alien technology in certain circumstances. Once the landslide subsided, they emerged from the shelter to assess the damage. The terrain had shifted dramatically, large boulders blocking paths and new fissures opening in the ground. Many of the alien patrols had been caught in the chaos, forced to retreat for safety. The human, however, saw opportunity amid the danger. He pointed toward a narrow passage that Lyra had never noticed before. By using this route, they could reach higher ground and gain a better view of the surrounding mountains. Lyra followed him closely, amazed at how he navigated the treacherous terrain. He moved with a combination of careful observation and instinctive decision-making, testing each step and adjusting as needed. He even paused to help small alien creatures trapped by the debris, using clever techniques to free them without risking their safety. Lyra realized that humans were not only resourceful and intelligent, but also compassionate. Their courage was matched by empathy, a quality her people rarely displayed so freely. As they climbed higher, they noticed strange energy patterns in the rocks and air. Lyra had seen such phenomena before, but never at this scale. The human studied the patterns carefully, using his small tools and notebook to record observations. He seemed to understand something she could not, recognizing potential danger before it fully manifested. Lyra felt a sense of awe. Humans could see patterns, predict outcomes, and solve complex problems with a clarity that even her advanced species struggled to achieve. Suddenly, a massive wave of energy surged across the mountains, causing rocks to tremble and fissures to widen. The human acted immediately, using his knowledge and observation to construct simple devices to stabilize certain areas and redirect dangerous energy flows. Lyra helped him, following his instructions and learning from his methods. Together, they began to create a network of protective measures, combining human ingenuity with Lyra's understanding of Zyphora's terrain. Hours passed, and the danger escalated. The energy wave was growing stronger, threatening to destabilize the entire mountain region. Lyra could see the fear in the eyes of nearby alien observers who had gathered at a safe distance. They relied on technology and rigid procedures, yet they were struggling to understand how to respond. The human, however, remained calm and focused. He analyzed, adjusted, and improvised, guiding Lyra and even some of the cautious aliens who had approached to help. Lyra realized something profound. Humans were not limited by rules or assumptions. They could adapt, innovate, and find solutions in real time, even in unprecedented situations. The human's courage and intelligence inspired her. She felt a deep admiration and trust, knowing that together they could overcome the threat. As the energy wave intensified, the human devised a final plan. Using natural features of the mountains and simple materials, he constructed a series of barriers and channels to redirect the flow safely away from populated areas. Lyra helped him, moving rocks, reinforcing structures, and guiding others to assist. The process was exhausting, dangerous, and precise, but the human remained steady, instructing and motivating everyone involved. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the wave began to dissipate. The mountains trembled one last time, and then the energy subsided. Lyra and the human stood together, surveying the landscape. The danger had passed, and the population of Zyphora had been spared. Lyra felt a mixture of relief, pride, and amazement. She realized that humans, though physically small and seemingly fragile, possessed an extraordinary combination of intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness that could overcome even the most advanced challenges. The alien authorities arrived shortly after, cautious and unsure. They had observed the humans' actions and were both astonished and skeptical. They asked Lyra how she had managed to follow and assist him. She simply smiled, knowing that the human had proven the point for her. Words were unnecessary. His actions had demonstrated the remarkable capabilities of his species. Lyra turned to the human, who gave a small, humble smile. He had saved not just themselves, but potentially the entire region, using only his mind, creativity, and courage. Lyra realized that humans were more than capable, they were exceptional. They had the ability to survive, to innovate, and to inspire, even in a world far beyond their own. Over the next few days, Lyra and the human worked together to repair damage, assist affected creatures, and reinforce structures. They became a team, combining human ingenuity with Lyra's knowledge of the planet. Other aliens watched in awe, slowly recognizing that humans were not just fragile beings. They were thinkers, problem solvers, and capable allies who could contribute in ways that were unexpected but invaluable. Lyra reflected on everything she had witnessed. The human had arrived on Zyphora as a stranger, a being she barely understood. But through courage, intelligence, and creativity, he had not only survived but had also protected her world. She realized that humans could change the way her species saw life, problem-solving, and courage. They could teach lessons about adaptation, innovation, and empathy that advanced technology alone could not provide. As the twin moons rose over the repaired mountains, Lyra watched the human prepare his small spacecraft for departure. She felt a mix of emotions: gratitude, admiration, and a deep respect for the species he represented. She knew that humans were capable of extraordinary things, and that this single encounter had proven it beyond doubt. The human glanced at Lyra and gave a small wave, a gesture that conveyed respect, friendship, and understanding. Lyra waved back, her heart full. She knew that this moment would stay with her forever, a reminder that humans were more than fragile creatures. They were creative, courageous, and capable of greatness in ways her species had underestimated for centuries. As he lifted off into the sky, Lyra felt a sense of wonder and hope. The human had not just survived, he had thrived, taught, and inspired. Zyphora had witnessed the extraordinary potential of humanity, and she knew that this encounter would change the way her people thought about other species forever. Lyra stayed on the observation deck, gazing at the trail of light left by the departing spacecraft. She thought of the lessons learned. Courage, adaptability, empathy, and intelligence were not limited by technology or strength. Humans embodied all of these qualities, and they had proven that even the smallest, seemingly fragile beings could achieve greatness. Her mind turned to the future. She imagined more humans arriving, more opportunities for learning, collaboration, and growth. She imagined a world where Zyphora and humanity could work together, sharing knowledge, ideas, and experiences. She felt excitement for the possibilities, knowing that humans were capable of so much more than anyone had imagined. That night, under the light of the moons, Lyra reflected on the journey she had shared with the human. She thought of the storms they had faced, the dangers they had navigated, and the solutions they had created together. She realized that humanity's greatest strength lay not in size or technology, but in courage, intelligence, creativity, and empathy. She whispered to herself, a quiet affirmation of everything she had witnessed. So this is possible for a human. The experience had changed her forever. She now understood that humans were extraordinary, capable of achieving what many thought impossible. They could survive in the harshest environments, innovate under pressure, and inspire even the most advanced species with their ingenuity and courage. Lyra knew that Zyphora would never be the same. Her people had witnessed something remarkable, and through her eyes, they would begin to appreciate the true potential of humans. She felt proud, inspired, and filled with hope for the future. As she finally rested for the night, she dreamed of humans exploring other worlds, solving problems, and facing challenges with courage and intelligence. She dreamed of the bond she had formed with the human she had helped, and of the lessons that would shape her people's understanding for generations to come. Lyra smiled in her sleep, knowing that humanity had proven itself beyond doubt. And in her heart, she knew that this was only the beginning of a new era, one where humans and aliens could work together, learn from one another, and achieve greatness beyond imagination. The alien girl watched in shock. Was this even possible for a human?